So, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. Tell me when you were born.
30th December 1954.
So what you want to do is, I'll ask you questions, but rather than you answer them as questions, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to feed you stuff so that you'll talk.
Right, okay.
So you would say something like, I was born in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than me ask questions and you answer the questions. So we'll do it again.
Okay.
So Chris, tell me when you were born.
I was born in the mid-50s and in Darlington, which is where we are now. And it was pretty grim. It was the year rationing ended after the Second World War. So I was born into a different world, really, than the one we're in now.
What about your education?
Bog standard state education. But I was always interested in art and literature. And I neglected everything else for that, really.
So what year, how old were you before you started to think, I'm only going to be good at this and nothing else? Or was
Well, it's not so much that, it's just...
family that influenced you?
Sorry?
Anybody in your family influenced you?
Not at all. It discouraged me all the time. But I was, you know when you're a kid and somebody gives you a few crayons and a piece of paper, so they go busy yourself with that. A lot of kids will do it while they're kids and they grow out of it, and I never did.
So how old were you, do you think?
What, when I started painting for really?
No, I think when you started to think crayons, paper is better than scale extric or whatever.
I don't know. I remember being 13 and thinking that I could actually do something with painting and say something with painting, and that there was a purpose to it. I was 13, I remember doing that. I'd just gone to secondary school, and that was it. I just took off from there.
What year would that be?
I was 13, about 67, 68, a while back.
Nobody in your family?
Nobody's in the least bit creative, no, in any way.
So why do you think this gift, if you call it that, touched on you?
I don't know, it just made sense to me, but I don't know why exactly it happened. Probably because nothing else really interested me at the time. My mother did have a lot of art books, and I saw my first Picasso stuff through books, and lots of modern painting through books. And what I've been used to was like classical stuff. I mean, my dad did like Canaletto, but it was very, to me there were pictures on the wall, but in these books there was something else.
Why?
Why? It was something I wasn't familiar with, so-called modern art. And that just led me somewhere else. And one thing after another has led me to a different place. Just studying one kind of painting, different movements, and I didn't know anything about that. I sort of educated myself really in that respect, just by reading.
What about in school, secondary school you're talking about?
Yeah.
So in secondary school, was there an art teacher?
Yeah, a guy called Morgan. He was pretty good. He used to basically just let me get on with it. He didn't really teach me. I was always on the other side of the classroom with something in front of me on the table, drawing away, while he taught the others. I don't know why he separated me out. But he obviously thought I was good because he told my next teacher at the sixth form, that would be Peter Hicks, who's been a practising painter for years and years now. He's got quite a reputation.
Still alive?
Still alive, he's in his 80s, yeah. And I'd love to get in touch with him.
If you could get in touch with him, what would you say?
I think I'd have to be in the situation. You know what I mean? Because I haven't seen him I last saw him when I was about 20. That's half a century ago.
How do you know he's still alive?
He's on, he's got little videos put up on Facebook and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, some nice little bits of film, and he's still doing what he used to do, only more so. All in North Yorkshire.
So you left school what year?
God, I don't know. I was about 18, I think. Whenever that was. Early 70s.
I notice you're not specific about years and dates. And ask when you were born, you said in the 50s, that's enough. There's no exact year.
Yeah. I don't know.
You decided to be timeless.
I can't remember. I haven't got a record of it. It's just, that was the end of that. I was glad to get out of
How old were you when you
full-time education. What?
How old were you when you left school?
I think I was 18.
So 18. You did go to sixth form?
Yeah.
Ah.
And did my A-level art there, and I was going to go off to Sunderland.
So there was A-level art. Was there any other A-levels?
English. That was it.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I didn't do sixth form. I left with nothing at 15. So you're lucky. You're more gifted than I was at that age.
Well, there were two things I was interested in. The rest just went to hell.
So why the English? The arts explained itself. Why the English?
I've always read as well. I read masses. Always have done. And it just seemed to make sense.
The combination of English and art. English language, English literature.
I saw them as, in many ways, separate things. Two branches of some kind of creativity, but separate things, really.
So you left at 18, would have been 1970s, wouldn't it?
I was 18, it'd been about 73.
What was going through your mind as regards to, like, what am I going to do now with the rest of my life?
Well, Peter Hicks, the teacher I was with then, said, you don't really need to go to art school, you could start painting now, you know everything you need to know. And I thought that was, in retrospect, it was the stupidest thing he could have said to me. At that age, just maybe really arrogant, late teens, and you think, yeah, I've got it all now, I just set off on my own, and I was totally lost for years.
Why?
Trying to find a way of painting that didn't look like anybody who'd influenced me.
Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely, but it takes years.
but don't all artists, when they start out, have some influence of artists?
Usually, yeah.
While their peers are older.
And you work away from that.
To create your own style.
Yeah. I did a strange thing when I was in my mid-teens that I was doing these figurative paintings, and everyone said, "Oh, it looks like Bacon." Oh yeah, Bacon and influence you. I'd never heard of the guy.
Huh.
And then I saw some of his paintings, and I thought, I've got to do something different here, because they just looked like I was copying Francis Bacon, basically. And I'd never seen his work before, so I had to switch then. You just got to force yourself into a different direction. So he's not an influence anymore by any means. I'm painting in a very different way. And also having 12 years off painting, basically. Just living a normal life for 12 years, which was appalling.
Was that recently?
Up until 2.5 years ago, and I just started again, and I was lost all over again. So it's taken me 2 years to get anywhere, and the painting doesn't look anything like the old ones.
Let's keep a track on the progress.
Uh-huh.
So we're now in the early 70s. You're 18. You decided to. Your art teacher gives you some compliments.
Which went straight to my head.
They went straight. Yeah, you didn't use them in the best way, but not many people do when you're 20. I didn't. And then.
That's true.
And then what happened? I mean, obviously, you've got to make a living.
Yeah. I joined the civil service, which was probably the worst thing I could have done. I hated it. I was sitting facing a grey wall with a grey clock in the middle of it. And I thought, I wonder how many times that clock's going to go around before I walk out of here. Because I just felt trapped. They're all working for a pension.
But you need money to pay.
Yeah. I mean, I did all right there, but it was just a job. The thing I really wanted to do was being neglected. It's funny, it's like an addiction. It's an illness, painting. You really can get it bad and you're just addicted to it.
So, you got this job in a civil service. What were you doing? Working for who?
Department of Education and Science.
Right, in Darlington?
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was in Mowden Hall, but it's not there anymore.
So you did that, and were you painting in your spare time?
Oh yeah, all the time, as much as I could.
When you say all the time, what does that mean?
That means when I got a spare moment. Evenings, weekends. And
always in oils, or?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Why oils?
Drawing a lot. like oil paint. I like the way you can move it around. I like the way you can do things with it once you put it on the surface, on the canvas. I've tried things like acrylic, but they just dry too quickly. Because one of the way, especially the way I paint now, I didn't so much then. I'd have ideas, fixed ideas, and try and recreate what was in my head, which is impossible. But now I let the paint do a lot of it. You know, you use a lot of paint, you move it around on the surface, something appears, something emerges, which is kind of a surrealist technique, but I don't use it in that sense. It's just to get something going. Because often I'll start painting without any ideas, and then my head's full of them after a few days working on a painting. Because you get so much from the actual paint that you put down. It never quite looks the way you want it to. And you allow it to take you somewhere else, which is frequently better. I don't know if you know what I mean by that.
I don't know if I know what you mean.
Fling a bit of paint around, see what you see in it, you know.
With a brush, with a palette, with your fingers, what?
All of those things. Yeah, anything. It just depends on the kind of mark you want to make.
So before you sit down before you sit down with the canvas, and it's always canvas, is it?
It is now, yeah. I don't paint on rubbish like I used to.
you used to paint on.
I pick things up in the street and paint on them. Yeah, anything.
So you paint on canvas, and before you sit down, you have no idea what you're going to paint.
Not always. Sometimes I've got a vague idea, and it doesn't always work. But I usually have a vague idea, but then it's the how I'm doing it that I have to play around with the paint to find out what that's going to be, you know.
So moving on, then what sort of other people in your life whose work you've seen has influenced you?
I don't know if my paintings actually look like theirs. Yeah, I know George Gross, definitely. I think the painters I've admired, because I like the work, simple as that.
If you admire the work, does it influence you?
It's funny. It must be inside me somewhere. But I don't try and match up to any influences.
No.
I mean, when Goya's one of them, there's not much point really, because you're not going to ever be as good as him. Which he is. Yeah, but mainly it's early 20th century German painters that I liked.
Why?
There was just
Because
there was a no-nonsense approach to it.
Because of the culture of the time, or?
Probably, yeah, that as well. Just after the First World War.
So effectively what's happening is that because of this interest in English, and I suppose to some extent history,
Yeah.
of the modern world in the 20th century and the politics of the time, these people were using, like Gross, were using art to interpret their times.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And because they did that, you were turned on by them.
Yeah. And they were very critical too. I like that. Which wasn't very good for them because the Nazis came along and tried to get rid of them. But there was something about that time, the kind of turmoil of that time, that appeals to me. Because I think we're always in a state of turmoil really somewhere. And there's always, it should always be a part of what you paint and what your work is. Otherwise it's just not genuine, somehow. You know, you've got to base it in some kind of fact, even though I do a lot of allegorical stuff. And I paint things in parallel to what I actually mean. But it's a way of getting the idea over. Not that it's always a very well-formed idea, because it's quite interesting having ambiguity in your paintings too.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk to other people about them. They'll come up with things that you never imagined.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing to everybody.
Yeah. So what is it, Goya? Gross?
Goya, Gross, Dix, Otto Dix, even William Hogarth to an extent, because he was a satirist.
Tell us about Hogarth. I don't know much.
I don't know a great deal about Hogarth, to be honest. It's the wrong one to start with. Except that I've been to the museum in the place he lived, in West London, yeah. Right. And I just love his prints. And it's very satirical.
He was the satirist of the Regency period, was that right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I've got pictures in my head, memories of very kind of, not precise figures, but wavy figures that incorporate the colour of the canvas. You don't see coloured figures. You see. It's mostly. Can you explain in words the work?
No, because I'm not sure what you mean.
No, neither do I. That's why I'm hoping you can save me from this, rescue me. If you had to describe to a person who can't see the work of Hogarth, what would you say?
Oh God, very hard to do. Oh, just satirical drawings of things in his time again, but very satirical. And then on the other hand, he did very conventional portraits and the like.
So, Goya, Hogarth.
Goya, Hogarth, Dix. Who else? I'm going to have to refer to my list here. Not many. Oh, Ludwig von Meidner, who I didn't, or is it Meidner? I didn't know him. He's another German from the early 20th century. He has influenced me, even though I don't think he's the greatest painter ever. But he used to paint a lot of apocalyptic landscapes, and that just fired me up as well. I've actually done a few myself. And there is definitely a link between what I do and what he does, at times.
What happened to him?
I have no idea. Don't know much about him at all. Except I've seen his paintings and I like them. And it sort of fired me up a bit to do something similar myself, because I always had that idea in my head anyway.
So let's take it forward, because we can get about 30 minutes on this camera, and then because it eats up an enormous amount of memory on the camera.
Yeah.
Let's move forward to you're in your 20s. You're still in Darlington. You're managing to paint constantly. Are you managing to get this stuff exhibited? Seen?
Yeah, the first decent exhibition I had was in Darlington Arts Centre, which doesn't exist anymore.
What year would that have been?
I think I was 84, 85, not long before I left for London, because that's what everyone was telling me to do. Yeah, that was a pretty good exhibition. It didn't sell a thing, but everybody knew it was there. Everybody knew about it.
Was it the first time you had an exhibition?
It's the first big one like that, first one-man show, that was it.
Wow, so from early 1970s to 1983, it was just living, working privately on your own terms.
Yeah.
Painting on your own terms. And then suddenly getting an exhibition in 85. And then you went to London.
Yeah, it was as quick as that.
How did things affect you in London? How was your work affected in London?
Well, it changed to hardline figuration. And I don't know where that came from. I was trying to sort of say things just by using the human body. But it didn't come out that way. It was just, yeah, it was once again, it was allegorical. I've always done that. But, I mean, all I had to do was paint, so I painted all the time. You know. And I just sort of worked that thing out.
Did you find a market for this? Or
viewers? Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, that was the most successful time I've had as far as sales go and things like that. And I managed to accidentally get an agent. That helped, because that meant I could just paint. I didn't have to hustle for exhibitions and things and sales. So she took care of that, and I just painted all the time. I did some sculpture as well. A few things, which my agent bizarrely bought off me.
And so what about how many exhibitions do you think you might have had in London? Any idea?
24, 25, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, it was really busy. For 12 years, it was nothing but showing, painting, taking the money and running. But I was getting into a habit, because this stuff was selling. It's very easy to think, you know, to become quite fearful of changing things, because suddenly you could stop selling them. Which I did in the end, but that's because my agent left the country and vanished, and I lost my studio, and within about a month, something went terribly wrong.
Did you ever travel abroad?
Not much now, no.
But did you?
Oh yeah, I used to, yeah, a lot.
Has that influenced anything?
You know, I honestly think I just took that as a holiday. Time out from everything. Work happened when I came back. I don't think it really left much of an impression.
In terms of colour?
No, not really. I'm not a naturalistic painter anyway.
When you go abroad, I always think when you go to another country, especially the further south you go, the light changes. The bright things are, the more colourful things are.
Yeah, I can see how painters that would paint from life a while back would do that, because it's just, you just paint what you see. But I've never really been a landscape painter. But I know places in Greece where the light was amazing. And southern France as well. You see why painters go to places like that. Or used to anyway, I don't know if they do so much anymore.
But that's not influenced you in any business?
Not really, no.
Change anything?
No, because I always paint indoors. I don't care about the light. I use artificial light a lot of the time. Just as long as... Because the painting's a world of its own. That's why I'm not a landscape painter. I would have liked to have been, but I couldn't do it justice. And, yeah, I don't need those conditions because I don't paint that kind of thing.
And talking about your work in London, your exhibitions, 20 plus exhibitions that you've had, you've sold things?
Oh, yeah, a lot of the time, yeah. There were very few when I didn't sell anything. I mean, there were times when it was still pretty tough to get by, you know.
But there is in the world at the moment, as we speak, examples of your work on people's walls.
Yep.
Somewhere.
All over the place. I know there's one in Germany, one somewhere in China. God knows what he's doing in China, but... Oh, I remember what it was. There was one of the people, I was a member of the Barbican Arts Centre at the time, and you get studio space there in an old warehouse. And there was another person who was going to China, wanted to take slides. And they saw some of the slides of my decadent Western rubbish, and asked to see a real one. And it was a university, I think it was Nanjing University, and they actually bought the painting off me. I just have no idea what they made of that.
How does that make you feel, knowing that your work's on walls in different countries?
I just think, oh, good. Nothing massive, because I'm busy getting on with the next thing. But yeah, it's a nice feeling knowing that I'm sort of flinging them out there, and some of them are getting stuck. People are buying them in various parts of the world.
And are you surprised at the people that buy your work? Are you
surprised the Chinese bought one, especially the Chinese university. I don't know what they made of it. Or maybe just an example of decadent Western culture.
But it isn't necessarily artistic or rich people that buy your work, is it? It's anybody from any walk of life.
Well, I did try to be kind to people who didn't have the money. I would negotiate things with them, yeah. I mean, it's nice taking rich people's money off them, but sometimes it's more than that, you know. I prefer selling something half price, or even giving it, as I have done to certain people who really think a lot of it. Because those people should have it, they deserve it. If it's somebody who buys them, habitually buys them, collects paintings maybe, it probably doesn't mean as much to them, because 9 times out of 10 it's an investment to people like that, which doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
You know, either look at the thing or don't, but don't use it to make money for yourself, and they probably won't.
So why did you move back to Darlington?
Had enough of London. I retired because I was working then, and I just decided I'm going to paint again. If the only place I can go to afford to paint is Darlington, my hometown, then that's what I'm going to have to do, really.
So it's safe to say
But I can't sell them here.
It's safe to say you've been painting for 50 years, or more longer.
Well, I sold my first drawing when I was 16. That was in the town library here.
So over 50 years.
Yeah.
And whilst painting over that course of 55 years or so, you've occasionally pushed it aside and done something else.
Yeah.
And just completely forgotten about it, or just
Never.
temporarily forgotten about it? Or?
No. Still thinking about it, still thinking that way, but just not doing it, really. It just wasn't possible at that time.
And now that you're back in Darlington, what are the chances of getting your work seen again? I mean, what's the what's the score here?
Well, I live in Darlington, but there's no way of getting anywhere in this town. But there again, there's Newcastle, there's Middlesbrough, there are bigger places, Leeds and so on. I saw something through a gallery in Leeds not so long ago. But yeah, I've got to move out of the town. Not move out of the town, but this is not where this is not where it's happening, let's put it that way. Yeah, I've got to move a bit further into bigger places. That's just the way it seems to be. But I don't mind living here and selling stuff in another town. It's perfectly alright by me. Which I have done, one or two. But it's obviously not London, you know.
But I'm still struggling now. I'm trying to get you to nail your colours to the mast in a sense by saying what's the end game? What's the point of it all? This not what's the point of life, but what's the point of continuing to paint? Is it just you're painting and that stuff's stacking up in your bedroom with nobody to look at it? Or is it just to occupy your time, occupy your hours, your waking hours, to give you a sense of life, a sense of purpose in your life? Or is it to find an audience?
It's to get on my feet again and try and to get the paintings out there more than anything, rather than make a living out of it. I mean, I'm already sort of making a living without it, but it's just an inability to not do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something I do. It's an obsession. I often think of it as an illness, though. I've got to go and do it every now and then because, well, quite frequently. Otherwise, I just feel like I've wasted a day.
Would it apply itself to helping people with issues, mental health issues? Is teaching ever an option for you?
Well, it was at first, but I was a different person back then when I could have done that. And I don't know if I was up for teaching. I've always liked to just get on with things on my own. Very selfish that way. And I don't know what I would teach anyway. You know, how I would teach or anything like that. There are a load of doubts, and I'd rather keep away from that and just keep the painting for itself, even if it made nothing for me.
Has your work changed since you started? Has it
radically after the break? After the break I had in London, then moved up here, started again. I did a lot of drawing, but I hadn't painted in 12 years. And yeah, started from the beginning again, really. Started just wondering what I was supposed to be doing. And then trying to find something, a way of translating what was in my head without knowing what the painting would look like when it was finished. If they're ever finished.
And if you were to speak to people who are just young students coming out of or involved in art courses in colleges today who might be watching this one day, what advice would you give them?
Do it because you want to do it. Do it because you get something out of doing it, not through selling it. Because that doesn't happen so often. Yeah, you've got to really just have that really strong desire to paint, which is a very strange thing. I can't get to the bottom of it. I don't know why I want to do it. But I suppose it's a way of communicating. That's about all I can think of. I don't know why I have such a strong urge to communicate, but... And also, it's one of the few things I can do at all well. You've got to have some kind of satisfaction from it.
If you could look back at yourself when you were 20,
yeah,
what advice would you give yourself?
I really don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Would you say do things differently, or would you say just do things the same?
I would have liked to have my paintings seen more. Not just in London, but various places, you know. I'd like them to travel a bit more, which they have done to an extent.
Because that's what it is. That's what I'm picking up is it's about communicating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your vision of the world through your eyes.
I guess what it is, yeah.
On canvas to the people around you, which is
it's a way of not feeling lonely anymore. It is in a sense, actually, yeah. If someone sees a painting, it's like, oh, I get that. You think, oh, well, there you are. I've made some kind of bridge between me and a total stranger.
Yes.
That can be nice.
Yeah, I see that. And that's something I can relate to.
Yeah. And if not that, what else can you do? I don't know how else you communicate with people, how you can touch people. And I know a lot of people who understand my paintings think they're rubbish. And a lot of people that don't get them at all think they're wonderful. You know, you get all these weird things.
What are you working on at the minute?
Oh my God. At the moment I'm painting a Tower of Babel because it just seemed to hit me as being a very good symbol. Not as it was, not as the biblical Tower of Babel, but as the way I'd done it, which is basically a gigantic vertical shopping centre. It's all about, you know, consumerism and stuff now. And in the Bible, everybody ends up speaking a different language. Nobody can understand anybody else. And I thought that's a pretty good metaphor for now as well. And, well, yeah, it's all about competition, business, shops, consumerism, that kind of thing. Rather than trying to get closer to God or whatever. Or maybe that is for some people. It's just the way the world's turned around. And that's about it, really.
Brilliant.
Was that any good?